Welcome to the Mission Manhood podcast, where mature masculinity is celebrated and encouraged. My name is Angela Abide, and I will be your host. Every week or so, I sit down with a man who is in the men's movement, helping men grow and thrive in their masculinity, someone who is exhibiting characteristics of mature masculinity, or someone who has a perspective that might be beneficial for those who are seeking to grow and develop in that area. As a woman, I have a unique perspective as a mother and a therapist, and I hope to contribute to the conversation in those ways. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Hey, I'm glad you're here. My guest today is Joseph of Humble You Media. And I followed him a while on Instagram, and he's been a great source of encouragement to me. He's a real deep thinker and really cultivates that deeper level of consciousness, the difference kind of between head knowledge and heart knowledge. We talk about his journey and how he got to where he is now, and enlightenment and transformation and all that good stuff. And I think in our world right now, it's just so important. I mean, everybody's really out of sorts and anxious and depressed, and just reclaiming some of the things like going out and observing nature and cultivating that sense of peace in your own heart, I think is just going to be a lifeline for us. And the more we cultivate that love for ourselves and that great nurture and care for ourselves, the more that that's going to flow out from us to our family, our relationships, and the community, and ultimately the world. Hello, Joseph.
Hey, how we doing, Angela?
I'm doing great. It's so awesome to be able to see you and talk to you in person. I've been following you for a while on Instagram.
Yeah. We've been following each other. It's been over a year now.
Yeah.
Great content on both sides.
Yeah.
We've tried to get together, and now here we are, 2022. And also, I wanted to say I'm very excited for this conversation. I don't get asked to come on podcasts much, but here we are. So it's going to be a great time.
Yeah, I think so. Will you tell the audience a little bit about what you do and what your passion is?
Yeah. I've had a crazy story. So I started off in the professional world on TV. I was working for a CBS affiliate in Michigan. I was a TV meteorologist, but I left the business. I wasn't happy with what was going on. Just leave it at that. And then, and kind of entered myself in a sense. My girlfriend left me. I was left with nothing, didn't know where to go professionally. And I was with myself. And through that experience, I really connected with an inner voice, in a sense, you could say. Not something speaking, but something that was opening life to me. And then through that journey, I started coaching individuals, and then I got into the work of Carl Jung, and he really spoke about that inner voice, that inner consciousness, and he wrote a lot of material. So I decided to start writing commentary and then producing commentary on YouTube for Carl Jung. So lately, I've been doing a lot of that work, as well as coaching individuals, and really trying to present really difficult psychological material in a present age, in a present and modern time.
I think that's so important. And I respect people like that so much, because there are a lot of people talking about it now. But at that time, he was a pioneer and having to come up with the language to describe what he was discovering within. And now we have people like him that we can use their language.
And that's the difficult thing about that world. The inner world, it's invisible. You can't see it. So you have to use images. And then sometimes when you use an image, let's say I'm going to use an elephant to describe some feeling, some people sometimes get attached to the image. So instead of the feeling that we're trying to describe, because it's invisible with an image, people sometimes get caught up in the image. And then when they get caught up in the image, they lose the essence. Mm-hmm. So really, that's what the work is, in a sense, of Jung's work, getting back to the essence, understanding the mind, and really making that connection.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your story, because I hear a lot of people say, live your passion, go after your dreams and whatever, but you're a person who was going in one direction and then you made a change and started going in another direction. What was that like for you? Was that scary or?
Well, before I went on TV, I was playing baseball and I was studying business. And then I had an injury that kind of derailed the whole baseball career in a sense. I wasn't going to be a professional, but at least in college, I was playing. But at that point, I figured, hey, if I'm injured and I'm not really enjoying business, maybe I can go pursue my childhood dream in atmospheric science. And the reason I didn't go forward to it because I felt the schoolwork was going to be too tough. So that
Oh,
injury, which was a tough time, got me to kind of enter that unknown. I didn't know if I could do the schoolwork. I didn't know if I could talk on TV. I had anxieties, but going through that experience and pushing through the anxieties and then finally getting the job, getting on TV really allowed me to see how much will can do in a sense. Like you can change yourself. There's so much in transformation. And then the other experience now, kind of conquering the inner world, is my next journey after TV. It's been a whole different experience, but similar kind of a pattern of really opening yourself up to a new world, a whole new world in a sense. The TV world is a different world than the inner world, but we live in both worlds. So I think it's important to
yeah.
understand both of them.
Lately, in terms of adversity or things that happen, this has happened to me a couple of times just recently where something very annoying or difficult will happen. And I'll have this little voice that says, you asked for this. And I'm just able to like get really centered and go, okay, yeah, because I know what I asked for down the road. And if this is the detour that we have to take right now for me to get there, I'm going to trust that. And it sounds like you had a lot of those where you like the labyrinth, you think you're going this way and then all of a sudden you're turning this way and you finally get to the center, but it took a lot of different turns to get there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's almost those synchronicities you see in life, especially when you open up to that world. And Carl Jung was the one that brought up that term synchronicity,
Mm-hmm.
as well as a lot of other terms. So that's why I really started diving into his work, because there really are a lot of things our society's longing for and needing. And it's in his work, but you have to dig through it to get it.
And then you're sort of like an interpreter that's helping people who haven't had a lot of experience to understand it.
Yeah, yeah. You got to sit with the work and allow it to kind of flow through you and really understand that you can't just say A equals B and that's it. Especially with that invisible world, you can't see it. So but here's the thing, and here's the thing about my journey going on TV. I was scared at first, and fear held me back, and that's why I stuck with baseball and went into business. Fear held me back from pursuing those childhood dreams.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was able to have an experience that pushed me through. And then going through it, you could see how you can push through fear. And there's so much beauty and wisdom on the other side of fear. And that's why I love fear, because it's an emotion that you don't want to disrespect. You don't want to say, I'm going to be fearless and take on the world.
Yeah.
You want to respect it, but you also want to understand that on the other side of it, if you could see through it, there's something there. There's a little bit of gold, in a sense, if you want to use alchemical terms.
Mm-hmm.
And then achieving that is really the beauty of life. That's experience. And that's what life's all about.
There's kind of two different types of fear. There's the mind fear that's like, hey, you need to run because that snake is poisonous. That's, for a good purpose. But then there's like a spirit of fear that gets on us and we can't do what we're meant to do in the world. And fighting through that and getting to the other side leads to all those great gifts that we are looking for.
Yeah, yeah. That's the work, in a sense, the great work that they talk about, or that's the inner work, is really understanding the emotions and seeing both sides of them. So we talked about fear. Another emotion is anger. And, you could let that anger possess you and take you over, or you could sit with it and see what's behind it, what's pushing it through. And when you sit with it and get to the under roots of the angers, you could really learn a lot about yourself. And it's that self knowledge that really helps someone become conscious and more connected with life.
Mm-hmm. The other day, I did a video just explaining in a moment of crisis, I was dealing with 3 different parts. And one was my do good, want everybody to get along part. And then I had that angry teenager part, and then my little child part. And I've learned about myself that angry part is trying to take care of that little child part. When I first started doing the work, I would kind of get centered and it would just be rage. She was so angry that I wasn't doing my job to take care of myself, to take care of my little parts. And so when I took that mantle on for myself and started taking care of myself, that part has calmed way down.
Wow. It's really beautiful how there's other parts in you. And early when I was introducing myself, I said there was a voice, and someone hearing it right away might be, oh, this is one of those weird spiritual guys. But when I say it's a voice, it's not some how do I describe it? It's not some other voice coming in or some other being coming in and flying in, and it's this whole
Yeah.
experience. It's more or less this intuitional voice and this sense of knowing, this inner knowing, and that's really what you were talking about.
Mhm.
That voice that kind of pushed you in a
Yeah.
sense. So it's nothing woo woo ish. And here's the funny thing: people will give respect to a memory that'll hold them back in fear. Let's say they have a trauma that'll never let them go
Mhm.
forward because it's attached to something, maybe an anxiety. That's like a voice or a being that's holding them back. They'll give that respect and they'll say, yes, I have traumas and it's
Mhm.
there, but they won't go the next step and say that there are a lot of different parts of us in
Mhm.
the unconscious, that if you turn your consciousness around towards it, you could really allow yourself to bloom as a human being.
Yeah. We talk to ourselves. Just getting somebody to see what they're actually already doing and tying that together. You
Hmm.
had a quote on your Instagram. It was a little video you made. Through life, I've been searching for life. And it wasn't until I entered myself when life truly opened.
Hmm.
And I wondered, how did you know to do that?
That's you just gave me goosebumps because I ask myself that a lot. That's the woo woo niche of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a spiritual religious type. Again, I grew up in the East Coast. I'm from New Jersey, and I can't put a finger on it. It was almost like kind of like intuition when you have those moments where it's like, I don't know, I just did it, and it was right. It was kind of like that. I just went into it, and when I look back, though, and that's what the weird thing is, when I look back, it seems like I was pushed in this
Mhm.
way. But I'm here to speak on it because I was a typical Western ego growing up in America, and I've had quite an experience, and I'm still
Mhm.
having experience through the journey. So, yeah, that's a really great question. I'm glad you asked that.
You have mentioned something like this a couple of times, and there was something on your Instagram about Jung talking about the four functions of consciousness. And I thought this would be kind of a cool way to show people that they're already leaning in this direction. And he talked about sensation. That's just kind of like the feeling you get, and then the thinking, what it is, what that sensation is, and then your feeling, you're going to accept or reject it, and then that intuition. That's what you're talking about. Like how
Mm.
it's kind of a mystery. How did you know? I think about that in terms of when you meet somebody, you feel like they might be special. You kind of get goosebumps or you feel, nervous. And then you start to think about, oh, I'm attracted to them. That's the thinking. And then is it okay for me to be attracted to them? Are they married? Are they available? What does society say about that person and me being attracted to them?
Mhm.
And then like the people that just say, I just knew. When I met them, I just knew. That's more of that intuition.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I like to show people you're already operating in this. It's not like it's foreign. It's just
Oh,
becoming,
yeah.
yeah, becoming aware of it.
And it's beautiful to look at a situation with wholeness, because sometimes what Jung spoke about is a lot of people are more of a thinking type or more of a feeling type. So if you're more of a thinking type and you're stuck in intelligence, you might not be able to see a situation wholly. You might not be able to see if it's acceptable or not. You might not be able to really understand the situation. So embracing wholeness is a beautiful example you brought up with the four functions, is seeing a situation in all the different aspects.
Yeah. You said that it takes you to heal you.
Hmm.
And I wondered, based on your experience or how you help people, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is our society has become very dependent, and this is not due to one specific source, but we've become over comforted in our houses. There's air conditioning, and we're very dependent, and we like to be comfortable. And because of that, sometimes healing someone's mind, especially in the psyche, achieving things in life, it's easy to blame and become dependent on others. It's like, oh, it's because of this person, or oh, if this person just gave me this. And what I mean by that is, you have to do it yourself, because at the end of the day, it has to be done by you internally, especially. And this is the important part: internally, no one could touch you internally but you. Your consciousness is unique to you. What's so beautiful is we're all born in this blank slate, and we all have this beautiful consciousness. And then through life, we build all of our perceptions, all of our beliefs, all of our opinions in the background on these different objects in life. And everyone's consciousness is then unique to their self. And that's the importance of doing the work, because if you're going to a therapist and you're like, oh, heal me. How
Mhm.
are they going to get in there? They can't get in there. They
Yeah.
could give you medicine that they never tried themselves.
Mhm.
But the important thing is if somebody does enter their self and they start to look at that content, they can make a change because again, their consciousness is unique to them. So that's what I mean by that. Also, a little bit of a knock on religions because it's always like, oh, wait for the savior. Someone's
Mhm.
going to come save you. And if you're just sitting around waiting your whole life, you're never going to really embrace it. And,
Yeah.
I think the beauty of life is really embracing life and learning through the experiences.
Yeah, and I think religion kind of gets in the way of the authentic message because when I like read the words of Christ and try to dissect what he was trying to say or communicate, to me it looks a lot different than what we're presented with as far as a religious experience. And that whole aspect of I am, the capital I, capital A, capital M, I'm not so sure that wasn't that consciousness you speak of or the self that internal family system speaks of. People have put it in different kind of language,
Hmm.
but that life is within you. And I think the first half of our life, we're conditioned. I had 3 kids and I met them when they first got here, and holding them, I could sense their pure essence. It was like they were just pure being. And then we put everything, we tell them who they are, we tell them what to wear, we tell them what sports team we play for, we tell them what church we're going to go to, we tell them, how to be and what their last name means and all of this stuff. So it's like you forget who you are. And then the second half of your life is really trying to get back there and to
Mm.
remember. So you have to go within to get there.
That's it. That's it. And you have to go through all that baggage that you put on top of the
Yeah.
truth, on top of the true, pure consciousness, the pure being. That's a beautiful example. Real quickly, there's a lot of traits of that children do, and I'm going to bring it back to what we were talking about. There's a lot of traits that children do automatically without ever being taught. So then you wonder, where's that intelligence come from?
Hmm.
It's the same thing with intuition. It's like, okay, there's an intelligence there. Where's that coming from? It's the same thing with the children. How do they know how to crawl? How do they know how to cry? How do they know if they want to eat? So there's something already there. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty. And that's when someone can open themselves up to that space.
Yeah. That intelligence that's already there. I wanted to ask you, like, you have to learn to discipline your mind and body. You have to, provide structure and order for your mind and body so that you can sort of access that third thing, whether you call that the spirit or soul or self. I wonder, how do you see that in your mind? Is it 3 things? Is it soul and spirit? How do you look at it when you're thinking about it?
I try not to put too many labels on it, especially because I think everyone's situation is unique.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I think we all personally have our own, like I said, consciousness, which means we all have our own souls in a sense. And I like to put consciousness in one realm. I like to put the subconscious in the realm in between, and that would be the soul. And then I would like to put another, which would be spirit, and that's the unconscious.
Okay.
So you could see how conscious and unconscious are sort of connected, and we're influenced here by that world. They're influenced, that's the way I see it. So, I don't like to put names or beings, and I
Hmm.
try to keep it as open as possible. The beautiful thing is a lot of people talk about that number 3 being very powerful, especially here in creation. Plato talked about it a lot. And I think it's better for an individual to have their own personal experience and name it whatever they wish to name it than to look at a book or look for someone else to tell them something, because then they're stuck in belief and they can never cross Plato's divided line, if anyone's familiar.
And I think in searching for answers, people do get caught up in someone else's definition. And, even to the point where I've heard some people in the Christian realm even say that a practice like meditation could be evil. I get so saddened by that because I feel like in my experience, that's the way I found the truth, to be able to quiet my mind, to ask my mind to yield, and to get my body just to be quiet for
Mm.
a minute and then just listen and just sit. Over time, I've learned some of the greatest lessons just through silence.
Well, first, I want to say that Christ meditated.
Yeah, I
You
know. I know. It
Christ,
doesn't make sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, meditation, really powerful. It's so powerful. And that, that's the work. That's the only way to get to that space. There's different names for it. Mindfulness, back in the ancient Greek world, they called it the incubation. So,
Mhm.
it's been around forever. And that was the spiritual space. And that's spirituality. That's why I say psychology, in a sense, is spirituality.
Yeah.
It upsets people, but it's the same thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think meditation's a really, really powerful and beautiful method to be able to connect with oneself. Now, here's the thing: what is meditation? A lot of people try to say, I'm going to go into my meditation with a mantra, or I'm going to go in with this question. And it's good to have a question, maybe sometimes. But here's the thing: to truly meditate, you have to go in, like you said, with nothing
Mhm.
and in silence. And it's really tough to be in that space when we're getting bombarded in our society with the quickness, with the flick rates, with the social medias, with, the TikToks, they're quick videos, boom, another video, boom, another video, just everything, all the bombardments. There's so many distractions. It's really tough to find that space to sit.
It's definitely a discipline, but it's like such an essential tool for me now. If I ever feel upset about something, it's almost like holding the baby. Like if the baby
Mm,
starts crying, you pick the baby up and pat the baby. That's what meditation has become for me. And it can be just a little quick rescue in the middle of the day. But when I start to feel that turmoil or that storm brewing, if I can sit for a few minutes and just get really quiet and kind of ask myself, what is going on here? Usually the answer will kind of like bubble up. Like you said, it's not audible, but I'll go, oh,
mm.
yeah, that one word that person said to me in the grocery store, it got the storm going. And you can kind of search for that.
And then through your meditations, I'm wondering, because a lot of people would think, is there a right or a wrong way to do it? And for me, it's more or less something that's trained. That's like a discipline, like going out and throwing a baseball. You do it over and over, you get better at it. And
Hmm.
not better where you could become the master meditator, but better in the sense of quieting the mind. It's actually a discipline. I'm wondering for you, was your first meditation a lot different than your last? And for me, what I had to do at first, because I had so much anxiety, so much ADHD-ness, so much movement, I had to work on my breath and do some breath work before I could even start meditating.
Hmm.
What was your experience, if you don't mind me throwing a question at you?
No, I don't mind. I think at first I could do 3 minutes, and it took me a lot of effort just to sit still for that amount of time. And now I do a lot more than that every day. And it's like I said, it's become essential for me. I'm no good creatively. I'm no good to the people in my life. And it's
Mm,
part of my vocation, it's part of what I need to do. I ask my mind to yield, and I try to go through my scalp all the way to my toes and ask my body just to rest. And sometimes I picture like a deep well that goes,
mm,
I can never see the bottom of it. And I just
mm,
try to feel. There's a verse in the Bible that says, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty."
mm,
And so that visualization of just being in this really sacred, quiet place, that's where I try to get to. But if I'm really agitated about something, if I can't get my mind to yield, I go there and I just try to be compassionate. I don't beat myself up on the days I can't. I will go through the thoughts and just try to take each one. And so it just depends on the day.
yeah, yeah. And what's so beautiful is you have your own way of doing it. I have
Yeah.
my own way, and there's no right or wrong
No.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyone listening in, find your way, find your peace. And
Mhm.
when you do the meditations, here's the beauty. Here's the beauty. Your body relaxes
It does.
to the point where you feel like everything opens up. It's
Mhm.
unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a lot of your videos are in nature on the beach, showing the sky or the trees. And for people who've never really experienced it, I tell them start there. Look at the grass, see if you can find some ants crawling around and start to wonder and get curious and really start to observe. And you realize that life is so much bigger and life is so much smaller. And you start to just wonder about every cell in your body. That's where it starts, just the wonder, I think.
Hmm. Curiosity is unbelievable, and it could take you on a journey. But here's the thing: about when I was out in nature, I was really feeling connected. And it was this out in nature where I wasn't trying to follow some hike or talk with people. I was really just out with it.
Mhm.
I don't know. Really, you should get out there if you haven't been out there and just see what happens. It's unbelievable if you can get to that space, because your body feels a peace that it's never felt. And I really feel like we've been bombarded in our society modernly with a lot of like we talked about earlier, the distractions.
Mhm.
And I think it's what's needed. It's what's needed for the mental health crisis.
A couple of times I ran across you're talking about allowing yourself to be. You said that we're taught to become, go, 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 become, but nobody's ever really trained us in learning how to be. And you said at another place, just allow your mind to be. And I wonder if you can just say what you mean by that.
It's that state of being, kind of like you were just talking about out in nature, what the meditations get you to, that space of being. And it's not like you have to do it every day, but just a little bit allows things to relax. Maybe something will come through that you weren't able to see because your consciousness is flooded with your thoughts, with your fears, what's coming that tomorrow, what's for dinner, who knows what. When you get to that space, then you have other things that are allowed to come through. Becoming is really, really beautiful because that's where we are here in creation on earth. We're becoming something. So you
Mm-hmm.
definitely want to strive to become, but sometimes if you're becoming and becoming and becoming, you never have that sense of being and you don't know what you're becoming. You might become a house of cards and then you tumble down. Meanwhile, the tortoise is going to win the race. So being is really, really important.
Everything to me makes sense in terms of masculine, feminine, the great mother, the great father, and even looking at the nature of God, whatever you perceive that to be, as a feminine and a masculine nature. And like that feminine nature is what I was talking about earlier. That mother receives you, and you have a dignity just because you are. And then the father is more like, I am going to push you to become all that you're meant to be. And then the two of those, working together, like you never lose that dignity and that deep love just for who you are. And I think as humans, we lose sight of that. As parents, we forget to remind our kids that we love them just because of their essence, because they have life and dignity. And we, focus on grade 3 and grade 4 and grade 8 and the college degree. And after that, and who you're going to marry and all of that. And we get caught up in the higher and higher levels of things that are happening on the outside.
And what are we chasing and all that? What are we chasing to get? It's like I've coached people that are millionaires. What are you chasing to get? You make all the money in the world, you have the family, and they're still not happy. So it's like, what do you want? To me, at least in my journey, when I found myself and I found that connection, then I was able to finally become something in a sense. I was able to really embrace and enjoy life.
Yeah. I had a live the other day where I told the guy that I really love myself. It took me half a century, I probably to get to that point where I love myself. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people don't. We have these inner critics and we judge ourselves. And especially in the internet age, we judge ourselves by someone else's best life. And I think it just keeps us in this like toxic inner state.
Yeah. And then when we don't love ourselves, then we don't love when other people are happy. And then we project our hate onto them. It's really important to love yourself. And a lot of people, they talk about climate change. They talk about this change and that change in this world. But if everybody loved their self,
Mm-hmm.
if everyone took care of their, I call it their baggage, their garbage that they toss out and project on people because they couldn't handle their self. They didn't have any self-respect to go in there and do the work. That would heal everything. At least to me, I think the most important thing right now is for humanity to get back to that state of self, to consciousness, and really start to do the work. And I thought COVID would really get people going, but I don't know. It seems like people are a little bit more on edge.
I think, yeah, a lot of people just became more angry or more desperate. And that hierarchy of needs, when you're hungry or poor, you can't really think about growing a garden. You're thinking about getting your next meal. And I think spiritually, people are in that state. They're just trying so hard to numb it, or, like you said, watch the next video, or just trying to ignore, but actually doing that inner work and getting back to the basics of just locating something beautiful.
What's beautiful is right behind you. Carl Jung spoke about that. The peacock tail is a beautiful symbol of the self. And Carl Jung has a lot of different writings on that. Maybe I could send it to you, especially if you have like a love for peacock.
Yeah.
That's the symbol of the self, one of the symbols, one of the various symbols of the self, according to Jung. So I didn't, I thought maybe you knew that. That's really interesting. It's
No,
beautiful.
I love the colors. And working a lot with men, for everybody who's just listening, I have a peacock behind me. I think men have abandoned something. Like if you look at the old guys like Cary Grant, they had such elegance. And throughout history, really, there was an element of being proud. I think we see that so much in nature. The male of the species is the one who's, so beautiful and pompous, and to reclaim that dignity for yourself. I think that's a part of what we're talking about, the beauty, joy, and the simple pleasures. And
Mm.
that's why I love the peacock. He's proud.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nowadays, it's this pride where it's people want to be above others and
Yeah.
kind of push everyone else down. Not a good pride. It's good to be proud of yourself, but not prideful. Be proud of the work you've done. Be proud of who you've become, but don't do it at someone else's expense. Because what's so good about that? I mean, because you trampled somebody.
Yeah. Earlier, I said something about that capital I, capital A, capital M. That's your essence. And when I have learned to live there, that's when I can really love myself and feel that love pours out of me to other people. But to your point, where we are right now is everybody says, I am small I, small a, small m. And it's about some characteristic like my skin color or my gender. And we start to be fragmented like broken glass. There's so many. But here we're all one at that point of I am. Like I am so connected to you. And we can have fellowship at that place and then go on to have our preferences or the differences.
Yeah. We all come from that intelligence. Like all the children, like you hold a newborn, they all feel the same. Like you said, there's that pureness to them. And then we grow up and we all have our uniqueness that happens. But at the end of the day, we're all that same essence, that same beauty, that same consciousness. And I think we lost scope of consciousness in recent times. And the beauty is we'll get back to it.
That brings up this quote that I thought was so thought provoking. Everybody's so worried about who they are outside in the outer realm. You said to be that which you are is the bath of rebirth. That's really deep. And it kind of brings to mind like baptism.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what the Christians talked about with their idea of rebirth. And I think that's what a lot of people talk about when they become new or they're reborn or they've awoken, that awakening. That's that rebirth. Awakening and enlightenment, they're two different terms. Awakening is when you first wake up, and then enlightenment's a different one where you start to see the truth behind the deceptions. That's crossing the divided line. But yeah, really important stuff.
The awakening is like the first step, right? Is that what you're saying?
So for me, I would say awakening is when you kind of turn your mind around. You start to see, a lot of the things that I'm doing in the outer world are pushed through these inner voices or these inner emotions or these inner memories or these inner thoughts. And then as you're awakening, you're starting to see more of the truth. I say enlightenment's when you get to that state where you're able to just be kind of like a stone where no one can influence you. You're not going to go high or low. If something beautiful happens, you're not going to get too excited. If something terrible happens, you're not going to get overly evil. And I think that's enlightenment because at least at that stage, you're at a pure state of peace. And if you're at pure peace, at least in my terms, then you could create out of that beautiful space. If you're a creator, if you want to become something, if you're an inventor, if you want to build a business, or just live in pure beauty.
Yeah.
That's the way I see enlightenment. I think it's a process, and I think it's a long lifetime process.
Speaking of creation, one of my favorite things about your work is the videos that you make. I feel joy when I watch your videos, and it just feels like a spring day, and it just brings a lot of hope to me. So,
are you talking about the Instagram videos?
yeah, those little Instagram videos you do that are just so comforting in this big, ugly world where there's so much awful information. And I just go to your page, and you have the nicest videos and sometimes cartoons and sometimes just beautiful nature scenes, and your very comforting voice is.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out a way to get this information out without boring people. When I first made my YouTube video, the first series, it was a lecture, and it's a lecture on a book. I have it behind me, the red book. And what I did was I did visuals, there's animations, I did music too. and I did a voiceover. A lot of people liked it, but then a lot of people didn't like it. It's like, just give us the information. We don't need all the theatrics. So I'm trying to find this way of presenting this information, because that was my past. I was on TV, so I could do it. Present this information in a way that people can understand it, and not be entertained, but at least it not be too dry and authoritative, because it doesn't have to be that way.
To me, I think what you're doing is perfect, because what I see on your Instagram, it makes me really curious about what you're doing over on YouTube. So you have like Carl Jung, sort of like as Confucius or some wise person. And it's just enough to make you curious. You don't really give a lot of information, but that encouragement is something that's so needed. And I think that's the little spark that gets people to want to go deeper into the path.
Yeah.
Like, what does
And
it
that's what the
mean by
Red Book's
that?
all about.
Yeah.
Carl Jung went into himself and did an entire work on that experiment with his unconscious. So if anyone's interested in Carl Jung or psychology or the unconscious mind, it's a really powerful book, because it's his own personal journey. Yeah.
So, what perspective is it written from? Is he recording what he sees? Is it in the form of a story? How does he present that?
So he would do these active imaginations, sort of like you were doing with the imagining the well. You're
Yeah.
imagining the well. But you imagine the well, and then figures come out and they start speaking to you. And you kind of speak back, not out loud, but in your head, and you have these interactions. So he was having those kind of interactions in himself. So he figured, I'm connecting with that inner psyche, that soul. I'm connecting with the spirit. I'm connecting in the unconscious, and I'm seeing some other things that are going on in the background that I normally wouldn't see. And he was bringing it forth. So he would talk about the scenes, he would write out the scenes, he would give you what happened, and then he would do his own psychological, you can call it a dream interpretation, or his
Mhm.
own psychological evaluation on his own self. So it would be like somebody going up to Carl Jung and saying, I had these dreams, I need help to interpret them, what could be happening in my mind. He was doing it again with himself. So it was one of the first people, I would say, in this age of Aquarius that's coming forth, that are handling themselves and going in and doing the work. And he presented a whole book on it, which is really beautiful. So yeah, it was like a 2-step process. You see his dreams, and then you see the man interpret his own dream.
And so then what do you do? Do you just take a piece of it and kind of explain it to people so they can understand it?
Yeah, yeah. So I would do like a commentary. So if you've ever heard, anyone doing a commentary on Plato's work, or doing a commentary on the Bible, it'd be like a commentary now on Jung's work. I was surprised to see that not many people were doing commentaries on the work. Nobody, especially on the Red Book. And you could see a lot of people are getting into it. The video I produced, my first lecture, had over 50,000 views.
Wow.
And you know how hard it is to get
Yes.
attention nowadays.
Yes.
So you can see people are longing for it. And there's a lot of people just getting into this idea of the self and this work. So I'm glad that we got to speak on it today.
Yeah. I feel like it's something I'm curious about. I feel intimidated. So I like the idea of having a guide, having somebody to help me understand it.
Oh, yeah. Just like your clients,
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
tough to go in that world. The unknown is scary. It is scary.
One of your videos was, it was like you were saying that you were in a park and you were looking at all the beautiful free children playing. A parent lost it and just sort of berated the child. And your thought was, should I go and tell that person? Should I go and tell them how they're affecting their child and how much it's going to take for them to get over that? That was just the reflection on the video.
Yeah.
But you had a line in there that said, they've destroyed their respect for self.
Yeah, that's the scary part of this world, because when your eyes start opening, then you see the world differently, and you start to see when the traumas are first introduced in someone's life, and you're like, oh my gosh, I just witnessed a moment that might limit them, or might hold them back, or might even build a disease in the body. A lot of stress can build diseases in the body. So to me, that day I probably saw someone
Yeah, yeah.
lash out on their child, and it just breaks my heart to see. And then I always ask myself, like, should I go over? Because a lot of people are like, no, you let people do what they do. But then it's like,
Yeah, you're kind of
what if they
caught.
don't know? Maybe they need to know.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And that goes back to that intuition. I mean, sometimes it might feel right to do it. Sometimes it might not go.
Probably depends on the person.
Yeah.
Some people can't take it. They'll
No,
attack you.
no. But
You're a mother. What about you? I'm not I'm like, I have no children. I have no wife. I'm kind of I would say, a monk in a sense.
Yeah.
But for you, if someone like me sees that, and let's say you're doing that, would you want someone to come over as a mother and tell you how to not parent your child, but offer a little advice, or would you say no?
I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one because
Yeah.
obviously in that state, you're escalated for whatever reason. So it's kind of dangerous for someone to enter that because you might just catch it next. But I have had a fantasy of just having like a business card, and if you see something like that, just be able to say, hey, I get it. It's really tough. I just wanted you to know if you ever want to talk, free session, if they want to reach out, if you see somebody struggling. I've never done it, but I did think I might do that sometime.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So it's no judgment. It's like, hey, I know it's hard and I kind of work in this area. If you want some information, I can give it to you.
Yeah, that's really good.
So
Yeah, and that's big. No judgment.
you had another video where you asked, what is the meaning of life? And your definition of that kind of says something about you. And I wonder, do you have it defined, or is it just sort of a work in progress?
That's what happened when I was on TV. I got to this point where I'm looking around and I'm like, I made the American dream. I don't have to worry about money. I'm in a great position, but I'm not happy. So I knew that the meaning wasn't there. I wasn't fulfilled. And then I went on this search of meaning. And would I say I found the meaning?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I'm going towards it, but at least I feel like there is meaning now in life. There is meaning in life where I found it so empty before. And like you said earlier, when you get to that space, you want to provide to others. It's this true service without strings attached. There's a lot of people that offer help, but there's always like this little string, and you could feel it, and you feel them kind of, oh, remember I gave you that,
Yeah.
or remember I did this for you. To give without strings attached is really difficult, and that's that
Mhm.
space that I've been noticing, and I feel like that provides meaning to life, and I find meaning in such small moments now,
Mhm.
whereas before something tragic or beautiful had to happen for me to say, "Wow, life's worth it." So yeah.
I think that's really beautiful. You said, will you, the ego, follow nature or deny reality and create an illusion against self? Can you break that down for people that might sound like a little riddle?
It is a bit of a riddle. First of all, a lot of people say, "Oh, the ego's bad. Kill the ego. Kill the ego." But you can't kill the ego,
Yeah.
because if you kill the ego, there's nothing left.
Mhm.
There is something, people say, "Oh, you got to just kill the ego, look towards the self." There has to be something looking towards the self. Then, if you don't like the term ego, put your own name on it, but I'm going to call it ego.
Mhm.
Ego's consciousness. That's you. That's your subjective consciousness. Now, if you deny yourself, then you're going to create a life of illusion, in the sense where it's like, if a good moment happens, it's a good moment because you defined it to be a good moment.
Mhm.
It's good, a good moment. Let me think. My sports team wins.
Okay.
So now, because my sports team won, yeah, I'm all excited. My sports team loses. Oh, I'm down for the night. I'm all upset. That's an illusion. It's not real. You're making up. That's the one way you can go into that life. If
Mhm.
you want to go into that life, you could do it. Have fun. The other life is that true life with the self, and it's this inner dive that we've been talking about. And I think in that life, at least in my opinion, there aren't those illusions. You're really living the true emotions. You're really seeing the true anger in you, the true love in you, the true peace in you. And when you get to that truth, then you're living in reality instead of illusion. And it's all the ego, that's the transformer. It goes either way. It's the one that's changing. It's the one that is obese and becomes something beautiful. It's the one that gave up on life. It's the ego.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's our pick and choose, and it's all up to you in a sense.
When you were saying that, it reminded me of when I was a little kid and I would be so excited about Christmas. I mean, for weeks, I'd be so excited about Christmas. And then that morning, there'd be a flurry of paper and it'd be totally over. And I would feel so empty. And that's almost like what you were describing. Like we hitch our wagon to this thing or this event or this degree, and we think that is going to make us happy finally. And then it
Hmm.
happens and we're still empty. We're still searching.
Well, that's the big why go one way or the other. Because the world of illusion, you got to keep making up illusions to keep yourself happy. You got to keep either taking the drugs or taking whatever it is to. But the other way, when you get to that self and that true space, then you don't need much. You're not always in need. You already got what you needed. So then there's a lot more peace. There's still
Yeah.
suffering. There's still difficulties in life. It's not like this floating on a balloon and everything's beautiful. There's a lot of suffering. I go through suffering. Everyone goes through suffering. But you're not suffering with it. You're understanding it. You're learning through it. And you're not letting it stress up and tense up in you to allow those shadows to build that one day may scare you.
And I just had a little moment when you were talking there. That's why in the middle of the day, if I'm upset, I need to go down and like reconnect with source, because that out there, what happened or what I achieved or what somebody said is not the source of my peace. But if I can reconnect with that and remind myself, you're okay. It's fine. Because like you said, life is hard. There is suffering. Just because you're doing this inner work doesn't mean you're going to be free from suffering. It just means you handle it in a different way.
You don't suffer with it. You really don't suffer with it. You understand it. And there's still moments where you may have a breakdown,
Yeah.
but right after you're like, okay, I'm fine. Everything's fine. On my journey, a lot of those moments, though, lately, I haven't really noticed them. I'm only 30, so I'm just going through this. I think as like we talked about, as you become more disciplined, like in meditation, you become more disciplined as a human being, and you become a little bit more stone. And I think we talked about earlier, like the enlightenment, that's that enlightenment. It's really to not live in illusion is the work.
To not live in illusion. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming and sharing your wisdom with us. And I really look forward to checking out and going a little deeper with Jung's work.
I think you'll really like it. And I'm going to be honest with you. We talked about it in the pre-podcast. I was a weatherman, so I had to take the atmospheric terms and bring them to life in a sense, so people can understand them. It's the same thing with Jung. It's difficult terms, but if you watch it, it's so basic. It's almost like a cartoon in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
You'll enjoy it. So if anyone out there is interested, also you can go on Humble You Media on YouTube, and you'll find all that information. Which I have a few videos out on consciousness and Jung. So. And then you can also check out Humble You Media on Instagram as well.
Okay. Humble You Media on Instagram, and your YouTube was?
Humble You Media.
Okay. I'm going to read something to close us out, and it's the text from a little video that you made. It says, "So we live in two worlds, and over there we live by the objects, by the materials, by the plastics, by the Netflix, by the metaverse, by all the entertainments, taking our attention away from what is, from the truth, that other world. And when you get into this world, the world of silence, the world of peace, the world of knowing thyself, you'll be able to be entertained by life, by nature, by what is. And you'll look up at the sun and say, 'Beautiful sun, thank you so much. I appreciate the light you've given me today.'"
I was on a jet ski out in the middle of the ocean when I did that video, and I just recorded. And that was me in that moment, just recording. What's really beautiful in that moment when I say that you'll be entertained by life, if anyone watches that video, you'll see a bird fly right over when I say it. And it's just nature kind of reflecting it back like, hey, I got you. And I've had some really interesting moments. Again, I'm not spiritual. I'm not religious. I've had very interesting moments where it just shocked me and it gave me goosebumps. But wow, what a beautiful conversation. And real quick, I do want to say it. I said it in the pre-podcast, but I'm going to have to say it again. I really love everything you do for the world. There's not a lot of people like you, and we need it. I mean, these are the darkest times in a while here on Earth, and people like you helping people see through it, helping people open themselves up to more knowledge, more information. It's really neat. So I really thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you, Joseph. I really appreciate it. And you give me, fuel to go on sometimes. Like you said, it's hard, it's dark, and it's difficult, but we got to be in this together. We got to find the others. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.